The war had ended, but the memories of it still lived inside Daniel's heart. He was a human soldier, born on Earth, raised in a world that always seemed to be fighting one war after another. By the time he had reached the alien world of Veari, he was no longer the same young man who once believed battles brought honor. Now he carried scars, both on his body and in his soul. Daniel's ship landed in the middle of a shining valley. Around him rose towers of crystal that caught the light of two suns. The palace of Veari stood like a dream, its walls alive with colors that changed as the stars moved. To Daniel it felt less like a building and more like a song carved into stone. He had been sent as part of a peace mission, not as a fighter, but as a witness. And in truth, he was glad. For once, he was not holding a weapon. Inside the palace hall, nobles and advisors of the Veari people gathered. They were tall, graceful beings, their silver skin glowing faintly as though starlight lived inside them. Their eyes were deep and bright, like mirrors of the night sky. Daniel felt out of place among them. He wore a simple uniform, its cloth rough, his boots heavy. Compared to their flowing robes, he looked more like a tired traveler than a guest of honor. And then she entered, Princess Illyra. Her presence silenced the hall. Her skin shimmered like polished pearl, and her hair flowed like threads of silver. Her eyes were the color of oceans Daniel had once seen only in pictures. There was a weight in her gaze, not of arrogance, but of sorrow and wisdom. She moved with grace, but not with pride. She moved as one who carried responsibility heavier than her crown. Daniel lowered his head in respect. He thought himself unworthy to even meet her eyes. But when she looked at him, he felt something he had not felt in years. Seen. Truly seen. Not as a soldier, not as a tool of war, but as a man. The council spoke of treaties, of agreements, of weapons to be dismantled and borders to be honored. Daniel stood quietly at the edge, speaking only when spoken to. When he did speak, his words were careful, honest, sometimes rough, but always true. He did not try to impress. He did not try to pretend, and Illyra noticed. As the hours passed, her eyes returned to him again and again. He was not like the polished diplomats who used smooth words and smiled with false kindness. He was different. He listened. When someone spoke of loss, he lowered his head, as if he carried the weight with them. When someone spoke of hope, a faint light touched his tired face. That night, after the council ended, Daniel walked alone to the palace balcony. Below him stretched the valley, lit by two moons. The air smelled faintly of flowers that opened only at night. He leaned on the railing, his thoughts heavy. A soft voice broke the silence. "You are not like the others," she said. He turned. It was Princess Illyra. Her robe shimmered faintly in the moonlight, and her eyes held a quiet curiosity. Daniel gave a small, tired laugh. "I don't think that's always a good thing." "But it is," she said gently. "You did not speak to win, you spoke to share. That is rare." He shrugged. "I've seen too much to waste time with lies." Illyra studied him for a moment. She had met kings, princes, and generals. They all carried pride like armor. Yet here stood a man who carried sorrow like a shadow, and still in that sorrow she found something shining. A strength that was not loud, but deep. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the tight walls around his heart shift. He had come to this world as a stranger, but under her gaze he felt less alone. And in that moment, though neither spoke it aloud, something small yet powerful began to grow. It was not love yet. It was not devotion. It was simply the spark of a bond, fragile, uncertain, but real. And sometimes that spark is the beginning of everything. The following days in the palace felt different for Daniel. He had expected to be invisible among the Veari nobles, just another human soldier placed in a corner while the real decisions were made by people above him. But it did not happen that way. Because whenever he entered the council hall, he felt her eyes, Princess Illyra's eyes, watching him with quiet interest. At first, Daniel thought it was only his imagination. He told himself she was simply studying him as a guest, nothing more. She was a princess after all, and he was nothing but a tired man from a distant planet. But slowly, he noticed small things. When others spoke too long, her gaze would drift toward him, as if seeking his reaction. When he shared his thoughts, her expression softened, and for a moment the weight on her shoulders seemed lighter. Daniel could not understand why. He was not charming, nor did he have the silver tongue of a diplomat. He spoke plainly, sometimes too plainly. Yet perhaps that was what drew her, the way his words carried truth, free from masks. One evening, after another long day of negotiations, Aelira invited him to walk through the palace gardens. He hesitated at first. No one said no to a princess, but he feared stepping into a place where he did not belong. Still, when she looked at him with those calm blue eyes, he found himself nodding. The gardens were unlike anything he had seen before. Flowers glowed faintly under the moons, their petals breathing light instead of scent. Streams of water ran with a soft silver hue, and strange winged creatures hovered, humming like tiny bells. The air was cool, carrying a peace Daniel had forgotten long ago. As they walked, Aelira broke the silence. "You are quiet in the council, yet when you speak, they listen." "Why?" Daniel gave a half smile. "Maybe because I don't waste words. War teaches you that. Every word can mean life or death." Her eyes softened. "You have seen much suffering." He nodded. "Too much. Sometimes I wonder if I have anything left to give." Aelira stopped, turning to face him. "You give more than you know. When you listen, you honor the speaker. When you speak, you carry honesty. That is rare among leaders." Daniel looked away, embarrassed. "I'm no leader. I just try not to lie." But inside, her words touched him. For years he had carried guilt, faces of the fallen haunting his dreams. To hear someone as radiant, as her say he still gave something good, it made a small part of his heart feel alive again. The days passed and their walks became frequent. Sometimes they spoke of politics, sometimes of dreams, and sometimes of nothing at all. Daniel told her about Earth's oceans, stretching farther than the eye could see. He spoke of forests thick with green and winds that smelled of rain. He admitted Earth was broken in many ways, but also beautiful, still fighting to heal. Aelira listened with wonder. "Your world sounds fragile, yet full of courage." Then she told him of her own. She spoke of the twin moons that once guided, ancient sailors of songs sung at night to call the blossoms open, of a people who longed for peace but were chained by fear of losing power. When she spoke of her burdens as princess, Daniel listened silently. He did not give solutions or promises. He simply let her words fall into the night, as if catching them so she did not carry them alone. And sometimes that was enough. Each meeting left Aelira more certain of what she felt. She had seen warriors with swords, men with crowns, rulers with armies. But this human soldier, scarred and weary, carried something greater, a heart that still cared, even when it hurt. One evening, as they stood beneath a tree that glowed with silver leaves, Aelira studied him quietly. Her heart trembled with an emotion she had never known. "You are not like the others," she whispered again. Daniel gave his tired smile. Still not sure if that's good or bad. Her voice was soft, almost a confession. "It is good, Daniel. It is very good." Daniel said nothing, but his chest tightened. He knew then that this was no ordinary connection. It was something dangerous, something forbidden, yet something he could no longer ignore. And though neither spoke of love, both of them felt it growing quietly, like a seed pushing through stone. The moonlight painted the palace in silver that night. The halls were quiet, and most of the council had retired after a long day of debate. Daniel found himself once again on the high balcony, looking out at the twin moons above the valley. He liked this place because it was silent, far from politics and speeches. Here he could breathe. He leaned against the railing, his thoughts heavy. He missed Earth, though he had no family waiting for him there. He missed the sound of ocean waves, the smell of rain. He missed the feeling of belonging. Among the Veyari, he felt like an outsider, yet he could not deny that one person made him feel less like a stranger. That person appeared behind him now, her soft steps echoing on the marble floor. Princess Aelira. "You always come here," she said gently. Daniel turned and gave a small nod. "It's quiet here. No one expects me to say the right thing." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "And yet when you speak, you often say the truest thing." For a moment silence stretched between them. The cool wind carried the scent of night-blooming flowers. Aelira's robe shimmered faintly under the light, and Daniel found himself caught again by the unearthly beauty she carried so effortlessly. But more than her beauty, it was the warmth in her eyes that held him. She stepped closer, her hands clasped in front of her as if she was gathering courage. "Daniel, may I ask you something?" He straightened, sensing the weight in her tone. "Of course." Her voice trembled, though her gaze was steady. "How can I marry you?" Daniel froze. For a heartbeat, he thought he had misheard. His chest tightened, his breath caught. The words echoed in his head like thunder. "Marry you." He turned away, gripping the railing. "Princess, you can't mean that." "I do," she said firmly, though her voice carried emotion. "I have spoken to kings, warriors, and lords. None of them touched my heart as you have. You are honest. You are kind. You see me, not just my crown. I admire you, Daniel. More than words can hold." Daniel's throat felt dry. He wanted to tell her yes, to reach out and hold her hand, to accept the impossible gift she was offering. But he could not. His heart was torn. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "I'm human. You are heir to a throne. Your people would never allow it. And even if they did, our lives are different. Our worlds are different. I don't belong here, Aelira." She took a step closer, her eyes shining with unspoken tears. "Then tell me, what must I do to belong with you? What path must I take?" Daniel's chest ached. No battle, no wound, no scar had ever hurt him like this moment. He wanted her, but every part of him screamed that it was wrong. He remembered the whispers in the palace halls, the way the council looked at him with suspicion. They would never approve. He could ruin her life, take away her crown, her people's trust, her future. He shook his head. "I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if I deserve you." Aelira's hand trembled as she reached out, her silver fingers brushing the scars on his own hand. "Deserve has nothing to do with it. I do not want a perfect man, Daniel. I want the man who listens when I speak, who carries hope even when his heart is broken. I want you." His eyes burned, but he looked away. "If I stay by your side, you could lose everything. How can I let that happen?" Her voice was quiet, but stronger than any command she had given in the council. "Because love is worth more than everything I might lose." For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. His heart pounded, torn between fear and longing. He had walked through gunfire without flinching, but her words left him trembling. He finally whispered, "I don't know the answer. I don't know how we can bridge two worlds." Aelira's eyes shone with quiet determination. "Then we will find the answer together." In that silence, under the twin moons, Daniel realized something frightening and beautiful. He was already hers, though he had no words to admit it. And though doubt and fear filled him, he could not escape the truth. The alien princess wanted not a crown, not a warrior, but the broken human heart that beat inside him. The palace no longer felt the same after that night. Daniel carried Aelira's question in his heart, and it weighed heavier than any armor he had ever worn. "How can I marry you?" Her words repeated in his mind with every step, every breath. He wanted her more than he had ever wanted peace, more than he had ever wanted rest. Yet the thought of taking her hand felt impossible, like reaching for a star he could never touch. The council noticed too. Whispers began to stir in the crystal halls. Advisors with cold eyes watched the princess more closely, and when Daniel entered the chamber, silence often followed him. He was not blind. He knew they saw him as nothing more than a fragile outsider, unworthy of standing beside their princess. One morning, as the council gathered, the High Advisor spoke openly. His voice was sharp as glass. "Your Highness," he said to Aelira, "rumors spread through the palace. They speak of your fondness for the human soldier. This is dangerous. He is not of our people. He cannot share your throne nor your future." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to disappear, to free Illyra from this burden. But before he could speak, Illyra rose. Her voice was calm but carried fire. Do not mistake kindness for weakness, advisor. Daniel has shown more truth in his silence than many of you have in endless words. He is not a danger to me. He is my strength. The chamber erupted with protests. Words like unworthy, outsider, and mortal filled the air. Daniel stood still, his fists clenched, shame burning in his chest. He could not bear to hear her defend him when she deserved someone greater. That night, unable to rest, Daniel made a choice. He walked to the hangar where his small ship waited, planning to leave quietly. His footsteps echoed like thunder in the empty halls. He told himself it was the right thing. She was a princess. He was just a man. If he left, she would be free of the storm he had brought. But as he reached the ship, he heard a voice behind him. Why do you run from me? Daniel turned. Illyra stood there, her robe trailing across the floor, her eyes filled with pain. He swallowed hard. Because I don't want to ruin your life. Your council already despises me. If I stay, they will strip you of your crown. I cannot let that happen. She stepped forward, her voice breaking. Do you think my life belongs to them? Do you think I am only a crown, a title, a duty? Daniel, I am more than what they want me to be, and I choose you. His voice cracked as he whispered. But I am nothing. I am scarred, broken, a soldier with no place to call home. You deserve someone who can give you a kingdom, not a man running from ghosts. Illyra lifted her hand and touched the scar across his cheek. Her touch soft as starlight. You are wrong. You think scars make you less, but they show me who you are. You survived. You carry pain, yet you still care. That is worth more than any crown. Daniel felt his walls breaking. His heart longed to believe her, but fear still chained him. If you choose me, you may lose everything. Her eyes shone with tears, but her voice was steady. Then let them take it. I would rather lose everything than lose the man who gives me hope. In that moment, Daniel realized the truth. He had always thought love was something soft, something fragile. But here, in the middle of a palace filled with opposition, love was the strongest force he had ever seen. Stronger than war, stronger than crowns, stronger than fear. Yet the battle was not over. The council would not let this pass. The people of Veyari would have to choose whether to follow tradition or to follow their princess. Daniel knew the storm ahead would be greater than any war he had fought. But as Illyra's hand stayed in his, glowing softly in the dim light, he whispered to himself the only truth that mattered. He could no longer run. The council chamber was brighter than usual, sunlight passing through the crystal walls until the whole hall seemed to glow. But inside the air was heavy. The nobles sat in long rows, their silver robes shimmering, their faces set with disapproval. At the center of it all stood Princess Illyra, her head held high, and beside her, Daniel. Whispers rose the moment they entered together. Some voices were sharp, filled with anger. Others were low and bitter, full of disappointment. The High Advisor finally raised his hand and the room fell silent. His eyes, cold and sharp, moved from Illyra to Daniel. Your Highness, he said, the rumors are no longer whispers. You walk with this human soldier. You defend him before us, and now you bring him here as if he belongs at your side. The people look to you for strength. What will they think if their princess throws away her bloodline for a fragile outsider? Daniel lowered his gaze. He felt the weight of 100 stares pressing against him. His chest burned with shame. He wanted to speak, to deny everything, to free Illyra from this storm. But before he could, she stepped forward. My people will think the truth, she said firmly. They will see that their princess does not hide behind tradition, but chooses with her own heart. Gasps filled the chamber. The High Advisor's expression darkened. Princess, do you not understand? If you pursue this, you may lose the throne. The crown does not belong to you alone. It belongs to Veyari. Her voice did not tremble. And I am part of Veyari. My heart is not separate from my people. What I choose is not betrayal. It is hope. Daniel's hands clenched at his sides. He wanted to stop her. He wanted to beg her not to throw everything away for him. He took a step forward and spoke, his voice quiet but clear. She is right about one thing. I am not worthy of her. I have nothing to give but my broken self. I am not a prince. I am not eternal like your people. I am just a man with scars and mistakes. He looked at Illyra, his eyes filled with pain. If you choose me, you will lose more than you gain. But Illyra shook her head. Her hand reached for his, her silver fingers curling around his rough, scarred hand. The sight silenced the chamber. You are wrong, Daniel, she said softly, yet every word carried strength. What I gain is greater than any throne. I gain the one soul who sees me, not as a crown, not as a symbol, but as a lyra. That is worth more than gold, more than tradition, more than power. Her words echoed like thunder. The nobles shifted uneasily, some shaking their heads, others whispering angrily. But none dared interrupt her. She turned to the council, her chin lifted. You say he is mortal. Yes, he is. You say he is fragile. Yes, he carries scars. But tell me, what greater strength is there than to carry scars and still stand? What greater courage is there than to love, knowing time is short? If that is weakness, then I will gladly share in it. The hall was silent. Even Daniel could not find words. His chest ached with emotion. He had lived his life believing he was broken, that his pain made him less. But here she was, holding his hand before her people, declaring that his brokenness was not shame. It was strength. Finally, the High Advisor spoke again, his voice sharp but trembling with frustration. If you take this path, Princess, you may lose the throne. Elira looked around the chamber, her eyes fierce and filled with fire. Then let it be lost. A crown is only metal, a throne is only stone, but a heart that chooses love, that is eternal. The words struck Daniel harder than any bullet ever had. His throat tightened, his eyes burned, and for the first time in years he let himself hope. She had chosen. Not tradition, not duty, not fear. She had chosen him, and as her hand stayed in his, Daniel whispered silently in his heart, he would never let her down. If she could give up a crown for him, then he would give his very soul to be worthy of her choice. The decision of Princess Elira shook the palace. Some of the nobles were furious, others fearful, and many simply did not know what to believe. The High Advisor, unwilling to give up, spoke with a cold voice that carried through the council chamber. If the princess chooses this human, then he must prove himself, not with words but with his spirit. Let him face the Hall of Echoes. If his heart is true, he will pass. If it is not, the hall will break him. The Hall of Echoes was an ancient place, a test given not to warriors but to those who sought to join the royal family. It did not measure strength of body or wealth of crown. It measured the soul. Inside, one faced their deepest fears, their darkest memories, and their most painful truths. Many had entered. Not all had returned. Daniel listened quietly, his jaw tight. Elira stepped forward at once. This is cruelty. The hall was never meant for such trials. He is not one of us, he is human. The High Advisor's lips curved into a thin smile. Then let the human prove if his heart is as strong as you claim. If he passes, we will remain silent. If he fails, he will leave this world forever. The chamber echoed with murmurs. Elira looked at Daniel, her eyes wide with fear. You don't have to do this. You owe them nothing. Daniel turned to her, his face calm though his heart was heavy. Maybe I owe nothing to them. But to you, I owe everything. If this is what it takes to stand by your side, then I'll face it. That evening, under the cold glow of the moons, Daniel stood before the Hall of Echoes. The structure was carved deep into a mountain, its entrance glowing faintly with shifting light. The air felt heavy, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. Elira stood beside him, her hand gripping his tightly. Her voice shook. You don't understand what waits inside. The hall shows you not enemies but yourself. It shows you the fears you bury, the guilt you hide. It can break even the strongest. Daniel met her eyes. For the first time, his smile was not tired, but steady. Then it's the only trial I was ever meant to face. He let her hand slip from his, then stepped into the hall. Inside, darkness closed around him. The air grew cold, and his footsteps echoed as if he walked inside a hollow heart. Suddenly, shadows shifted, and before him appeared visions, faces from his past. He saw soldiers he had fought beside, their eyes accusing. You survived while we fell, they whispered. You carry our blood on your hands. Daniel's chest tightened. He had carried these ghosts for years, but here they were alive again, their voices cutting into him. He fell to his knees, his breath shaking. Then the shadows changed. He saw himself, alone, older, forgotten, his body broken. You will bring her nothing but pain, the vision said. You will wither while she shines. You will be her weakness. Daniel gritted his teeth. His hands trembled. Every word felt like truth. Elira deserved more than him. He wanted to give up, to stay on his knees and let the darkness swallow him. But then, through the storm of voices, he remembered her words. My life is my own. And I choose you. What greater strength is there than to carry scars and still stand? A heart that chooses love that is eternal. Her voice was not here, but it lived inside him. Slowly, Daniel pushed himself to his feet. His knees shook, his chest burned, but he took one step forward. Then another. And another. The vision screamed, the shadows clawed, but he kept walking. He whispered to the darkness, his voice breaking but strong. I am not perfect. I am not eternal. But I will not run. Not from her. Not from myself. If pain is the price of love, then I will carry it. The shadows shattered like glass. Light poured through the hall, warm and gentle. The voices faded, leaving only silence. Daniel stumbled forward, and then he was outside, breathing the cool night air. Alira rushed to him, her eyes wet with tears. She threw her arms around him. You did it, she whispered. Daniel held her close, his voice rough. No, we did it. You gave me the strength, and in that moment, as the stars above shone brighter than ever, Daniel knew he had faced the greatest trial of his life, not war, not death, but the courage to believe he was worthy of love. The Hall of Echoes had spoken. Daniel had walked through its shadows and returned alive. For many in the council, that was proof enough. The High Advisor could no longer deny what all had seen. Still, his face was bitter, his pride cracked. Yet even he bowed his head, for tradition was older than him. The people of Alira's world gathered in the grand square of the capital. Word had spread like fire. An alien man had faced the hall and survived. More than survived, he had come out stronger. The citizens, curious at first, now looked upon Daniel with awe. To them, he was no longer just a stranger. He was the one who had endured what even many of their own could not. Alira stood on the balcony above the square, her heart racing. The twin moons glowed in the sky, painting the night in silver and blue. She turned to Daniel, who stood beside her, his clothes still bearing marks of the trial, his eyes tired yet shining with quiet strength. Her voice was soft but filled with fire. Do you see them, Daniel? They are watching, waiting, not for me, but for you. They want to know if the man who touched their princess's heart is truly the one she has chosen. Daniel looked at the sea of faces below, so many eyes, so many expectations. For a moment his old fear stirred. He was only a man, a soldier with scars. What right did he have to stand here in the heart of another world? But then Alira took his hand. Her grip was steady, her eyes unshaken. Do not look at them. Look at me. I do not need their approval. I only need your answer. Her words carried the weight of truth. For all the power around them, for all the traditions and tests, the heart of it was simple. She loved him. And she wanted to know if he loved her enough to walk into a future no one else believed in. The square fell silent as Alira raised her voice. People of Arendor, tonight I declare not as your princess but as a daughter of this world. I have chosen. The hall has tested him. His spirit has endured. And I ask you now, what greater proof of worth is there than a heart that will not break? Her voice echoed through the air and whispers rippled through the crowd. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others lifted their voices in approval. Slowly the murmur grew into cheers. The people had decided. Daniel turned to her, his throat dry. His voice was low, meant only for her. You asked for my answer. Then hear it, Alira. I may not live as long as your kind. I may not have the gifts of your world. But what I do have, I give to you. My days, my strength, my heart. If you will have me, I am yours. Her eyes filled with tears shining like stars. She whispered the words that had burned inside her since the day they met. Then let the moons be our witnesses. I choose you, Daniel. Not as a duty, not as a symbol, but as the man I love. The crowd erupted. Some wept, some shouted, some simply stood in awe. For in that moment they did not see an alien and a human. They saw two souls refusing to be divided. The ceremony was simple yet eternal. No golden crowns, no endless vows. Just two hearts speaking as one beneath the twin moons. When Alira placed her hand over Daniel's chest, and he pressed his hand over hers, the bond was sealed, not by law, but by choice. Later that night, when the celebrations filled the city with music and light, Daniel and Alira slipped away to the quiet gardens of the palace. The stars spread above them, endless and bright. Alira leaned her head on his shoulder, her voice soft. Do you regret it? Leaving your world, stepping into mine? Daniel smiled, tired but at peace. I have walked through war. I have carried ghosts. But I have never found something worth living for until I found you. If this is the road I walk, then it is the first one I choose for myself. Her hand tightened around his. She closed her eyes, breathing in the moment. Then promise me, no matter the storms, no matter the shadows, you will not let go. Daniel kissed her forehead, his voice steady. I promise. Until the stars fall and the moons fade, I will not let go. And beneath the endless night sky, two souls, one human, one alien, stood bound not by fear, not by duty, but by love. And in their union, the world was reminded of a truth older than time itself. Humanity was not weakness. Humanity was hope.